episode of A Little Brain Fuel because I have to take my kids to the zoo. I was supposed to be on vacation this week. This show wasn't even supposed to happen, but my Airbnb canceled on me the other day, and we decided instead of rebooking somewhere, we would just hang out around home. So we are going to the zoo today. We're set to depart in about, 25 minutes. So this is going to be short. Let's see. All right. Hope all of you are having a great day. Today, we are going to be discussing 3-betting strategies. We're going to be primarily discussing the GTO 3-betting strategy using these charts at pokercoaching.com. These are available right here in the tools section. You click on the tools tab right over here if you're logged in. So go right down here, GTO MTT preflop charts for tournaments and GTO cash game charts for cash games. Okay? Louis Philippe likes this hat. Yeah, we have poker coaching hats coming out soon. We have a store coming out soon. It can't come soon enough because it's been a while. All right, we are going to first discuss 200 big blinds deep, okay? This is a chart for 200 big blind deep poker. It's very deep stacked. I realize most of you aren't going to be playing this deep stacked. But this is roughly the GTO strategy when under the gun raises and you are under the gun +1 in early position, okay? Under the gun raises, we're in early position as well. As you see here, GTO strategy is to 3-bet the entire range. There are no hands we are calling with. You may ask why? Well, because in cash games, we're presuming we're playing with a rake, right? And when there's a rake involved, you don't really want to call and see the flop because the casino takes the rake. And when the casino takes the rake, everybody loses. So this is a spot where you don't really want to have much of a flat calling range. Now, if your opponents are all weak, tight, straightforward, and you know under the guns range is very strong, then you don't want to 3-bet with nearly as many bluffs. So you want to make sure that you are adjusting accordingly, right? Like maybe you do start having a calling range if your opponents are not going to 3-bet you very often if you call. You don't really want to have under the gun raise, you call second position with, a hand like 8-7 suited, and then someone you attack re-raises. That's not really what you want. It's fine, you're going to call the 3-bet, but it's not really ideal. So this is a strategy in this spot. We really do not have much of a calling range at all. If we move down to 150 big blinds, you're going to see this range is roughly the same because 200 big blind deep is not all that different than 100 or 200 big blinds deep. So we see 200 big blinds deep. We are 3-betting King Jack suited just a little bit less, it looks like. Really not much of a change at all in this scenario. Ranges are basically the same. And for that reason, if you wanted to figure out the spot under the gun raises, we want to play the GTO strategy. We are roughly using the same ranges, 200 big blinds deep compared to 100 big blinds deep. 200 big blinds to 150. As we start getting a little bit shallower, you see now, even hands as strong as jacks and 10s fold preflop to the end of the gun raise. I would not recommend this in basically any game. We are talking 9-handed here with a rake. In this spot, you really just don't want to have much of a calling range. And it seems like the GTO strategy is to 3-bet queens and better, ace-king for straight-up value, ace-queen suited as well, and then we are 3-betting all of these ace-high and king-high hands as effectively blockers, right? Plus a few hands with a little bit of playability. Pretty neat to see. If we go here to the tournament charts, though, with an ante in play, and 80 big blinds deep, so this is going to be very similar to the 100 big blind strategy, you see a lot of the same hands are opting to 3-bet as a bluff, these ace-x and king-x suiteds, right? We see these hands still 3-betting. We see some of these big cards 3-betting. But then we start to see a calling range, which all these hands that flop relatively well. And that's because when there is no rake, and there's an ante, as there are in tournaments, this is a tournament chart now, you get to start calling a whole lot more. And this is important to recognize, right? If you are playing cash games, you should inevitably flat call way less than if you're playing in tournaments. But funny enough, you actually see the opposite. Why? Because people haven't studied. They don't know what they're doing. You'll find that in cash games, people flat call way more than they should. And this results in them spewing money to the rake. You have to realize when you buy into a tournament, you pay the rake up front. So there is no rake on any individual hand. But in a cash game, you get raked every hand you play. Now, if you are playing a time rake game, as sometimes happens in the higher stakes, then you should be playing a little bit closer to the tournament strategy. That said, there is no ante in play, so you should be playing a little bit tighter than perhaps this chart if you were 80 big blinds deep. Kills. First session here. Hello, hello. My mom's here. Hello, Rita Little. Hope you're having a great day. All right. What about as we start to get shallower? Here's the 60 big blind strategy. 60 big blinds deep, you'll see we are calling even a little bit more, right? So notice hands like Queen 10 suited, Ace Queen suited, Jack 10 suited. These hands are going to start calling more as we get a little bit shallower. Also notice the smaller pairs are a little bit happier to call and see flops. You may be surprised to see a hand like pocket fours. If under the gun raises 9-handed and we are under the gun +1, we are supposed to just fold most of the time. And that is even more so the case as we get shallower and shallower. I'm sorry, deeper and deeper. As we're deeper and deeper, we fold more, right? Again, we're talking under the gun against under the gun +1, 9-handed. GTO strategy. If the opponents are very tight opening, you would 3-bet bluff less, right? This is just common sense. I'm not going to be discussing common sense adjustments here. We have plenty of strategy on that. Make sure you check out my book, Mastering Small Stakes No Limit Hold'em. We go through lots and lots of common adjustments you should be making to take advantage of the recreational player pool. All right, let's go down to 40 big blinds. This is where we're going to start seeing some pretty big changes. Remember, 80 big blinds deep, ace-jack offsuit's a fold, okay? You see this. 80 big blinds deep, ace-jack is a fold. 40 big blinds deep, though, ace-jack is a 3-bet a lot of the time. And that's because as we get shallower and shallower, like 40 big blinds, whenever under the gun raises and we 3-bet, they're going to start 4-bet shoving some decent chunk of the time. And when they start shoving some decent chunk of the time, we would rather just have hands that block their range, their 4-bet shoving range. So having this ace is very valuable. Also notice we have like fewer suited connectors because post-flop playability is not so relevant, right? So again, here's 80 big blinds deep. Notice we have a few suited connectors thrown in there. We have sporadic bluffs, but not ace-jack offsuit, right? 40 big blinds deep. We still have some king, queen, king, jack, but ace-jack is now used instead. So we're using more of just the offsuit big cards because we're going to get flat called less often. We're just going to get shoved on more often as we get shallower and shallower. These charts are available for the Poker Coaching Premium members. Some of the charts are available for standard members, but to access all of these, you need to be a Poker Coaching Premium member. There are some sites out there that charge $500 per month for fewer charts than this. So we try to give you an immense amount of value, okay? All right, 30 big blinds deep, you're going to see similar-ish, but even more of these offsuit big cards are opting to 3-bet, fewer of the suited hands because post-flop playability matters less as we get shallower and shallower. 20 big blinds deep, under the gun, +1 against under the gun. Now we're going to start seeing all ends. Notice, 30 big blinds deep, no shoving pre-flop. We're still 3-betting smallish to like 5 or 5.5 big blinds over a min raise. 20 big blinds deep, though, now we're going to start shoving hands that have good equity but don't really want to see the flop. Like, you don't really want to 3-bet pocket 9 small and see the flop when it comes even like queen 7-2. Like, yeah, it's a fine flop and you're stacking off, but you don't love it. So you're going to find now we're going to use 2 different 3-bet sizes. One is all in with your hands like jacks, 10s, 9s, ace king offsuit, ace queen offsuit, king queen suited, king jack suited, queen jack suited. And then a small 3-bet range with some aces, ace king suited, kings, and queens. These are hands that flop really well, plus a few bluffs like ace 9 suited. Also notice, pocket aces slow plays a lot as we get shallow. It's calls, 67% of the time when we're shallow stacked. But when we're deeper stacked, it calls way less. 30 big blinds, it calls 21%, and 40 big blinds and deeper, it calls 0%. It 3-bets every time, right? So you see that as we get shallower and shallower, you should start slow playing aces and kings and even queens a little bit more. Okay? 15 big blinds deep against under the gun raise. Now, we don't have a flat calling range anymore. We're just shoving every hand we're going to play. Once you are facing the under the gun raise, the shallow stack, you're just shoving a straight linear range. Pocket 7s and better, ace 10 suited and better, ace jack offsuit and better, king 10 suited and better, and queen jack suited opts to shove. Everything else just folds. This is a big spot where a lot of people make mistakes where they will call with hands like jack 10 suited. In this scenario, you should probably be shoving it or folding it against the under the gun raiser. 12 big blinds deep, obviously same thing, shoving or folding. 10 big blinds deep, same thing, obviously shoving or folding. Okay? So that's under the gun against under the gun, or under the gun +1 against an under the gun raise. Very common spot. Let's now talk about button against under the gun. Okay? We're going to talk about button against under the gun. And we're going to start, again, 200 big blinds deep, okay? We're going to go back to very deep stacked. Remember, under the gun under the gun +1 against under the gun, 9-handed, there is no flat calling. Why? Because somebody yet to act could 3-bet you a lot when we're playing in a cash game. And also, there's a rake in play. However, as we are on the button, and to be fair, as we're in later and later position, sorry, wrong chart, you see we still get to flat call a lot. Let's see if we were in low jack seat against under the gun. We do flat call a little bit. Under the gun +1 is where we don't really flat call much. So when our under the gun raises and you're under the gun +1 or early-ish position, you want to be 3-betting most of the time. As you get in the hijack seat, cutoff seat, or button, you're going to start calling more often. All right. So as we see, button against under the gun raise, we are 3-betting the best hands, aces, kings, ace-king suited. Not 3-betting ace-king offsuit very often. Not 3-betting queens, jacks, 10s, 9s, 8s very often. We're 3-betting only the absolute best hands that are very happy getting their money in. Aces, kings, and ace-king suited, 200 big blinds deep. And a lot of bluffs. Bluffs come from ace-x suited, like ace-jack suited, ace-10 suited, ace-5 suited, ace-4 suited, ace-3 suited. Stuff like 10-9 suited, 9-8 suited, some medium pairs. But notice here, we are actually calling a lot. There's a lot of calls in here with all the suited connected hands. Some medium pairs, ace-king offsuit, ace-queen offsuit, these hands mostly call. This may be a little bit surprising to people to see. Again, hands like pocket fives just fold pre-flop. King-9 suited folds. King-queen offsuit folds. Ace-jack offsuit folds. 200 big blinds deep in a cash game. The big offsuit hands are very bad. The hands you want to be playing are the suited connected hands, but the hands that are 3-betting are just a smattering of bluffs. Very, very mixed strategy here. Let's go down to 150 big blinds. This is going to be similar. As you see, not much changes from 200 to 150. Small changes, but not a lot. You start to see kind of big changes as you get to like the 4-betting strategy and 5-betting strategy when you're 200 big blinds deep compared to 150. But we're not discussing that today. You can go through the charts at pokercoaching.com if you feel inclined. 100 big blinds deep, similar-ish strategy. Right? Now we see ace-king offsuit and ace-queen offsuit 3-betting sometimes. Ace-queen offsuit's 3-betting is a bluff, by the way. If we 3-bet ace-queen offsuit against under the gun and get shoved on, we have to fold to the all-in or to the 4-bet. So we're just 3-betting all of our best hands and a smattering of bluffs, right? Let's now look at 80 big blinds deep. Button versus under the gun. All right, now as we get shallower and there's an ante in play in tournaments, in this scenario, we get to see a lot of flat calling. Why do we see a lot of flat calling? Well, there's no rake and there's an ante in play, so there's more money in the pot. As there's more money in the pot, you get to call with a wider range. Even then, though, we're still 3-betting some portion of the time. I mean, ask yourself, when you're on the button and under the gun raises, are you 3-betting the king-8 suited or the ace-7 suited or the ace-6 suited or the 7-6 suited ever? Or do you just always call or fold? Are you calling the king-5 suited? Most people just fold. They think, oh, king-x suited, no good. But this is a spot where you want to be 3-betting some portion of the time. A lot of people play really, really weak, really tight, really straightforward, and they only 3-bet the best hands. Or they make the error of 3-betting very, very linearly with only the nuts. But you're going to find anytime you're in position, for the most part, when you're deepish stacked, you want to be 3-betting very polarized with your best hands and some bluffs. Okay? Now, obviously, again, if the under the gun raiser is really weak, really tight, really nitty, don't 3-bet with as many bluffs as you should. Just to show you very briefly what under the gun should be opening with in this scenario, to compare if this is what your opponents are doing, we go over here, we select this 80 big blinds, under the gun. Are your opponents raising this strategy? This is the under the gun pre-flop raising range. I think most people raise most suited aces under the gun. Most people raise most suited connectors under the gun. They may not raise stuff like king-8 suited, queen-9 suited, jack-9 suited, but they will raise 9-8 suited ace and 8-7 suited. Most people raise ace-10 offsuit. So like this is a pretty reasonable range, even if the hands are slightly off, right? Like I don't think everyone's opening king-8 suited, king-9 suited, queen-9 suited, jack-9 suited under the gun, but they will raise like king-jack offsuited, 9-8 suited, right? So you're going to have roughly the same number of combinations. This is 16% of hands, so not a whole lot of hands here, right? And I think this is reasonable. I don't think most people are a whole lot tighter than this, but if your opponents are a whole lot tighter than this, then you in turn should 3-bet tighter, right? So again, here's the pre-flop strategy against this range. If your opponent's opening this tight under the gun, you should play this loose on the button against the min raise. Obviously, as your opponent raises bigger, if they raise bigger, you should be 3-betting probably roughly the same strategy, a little bit tighter, but calling way less, right? As you're facing a bigger raise, you get to call less often. So, under the gun raises, are you flatting the 5-3 suited on the button, the 6-4 suited, 7-5 suited? Most people don't, and they're leaving a little bit of money on the table. I do want to make it clear to flat call with these hands that are on the cusp, like 5-3 suited. You need to make sure that you play very, very well post-flop. If you play poorly post-flop, if you fold too often to continuation bets or don't bluff often enough, this is a spot where you're not going to profit with these hands anymore. All these hands that are on the cusp of playability, especially the mixed strategies like Jack-10 offsuit, Queen-Jack offsuit, King-Jack offsuit, King-10 offsuit. These hands should probably be folded if you're not good at post-flop play. That said, I highly recommend you study over at pokercoaching.com, study the cash game masterclass and the tournament masterclass, and that's going to ensure you play well after the flop. Can you tell us what the re-raises size are? So we have a video discussing this on the site, but in this scenario, we're presuming a 2 to 2.25 min raise. We're going to re-raise to about 2.5x that size in this scenario. You seem fired up today. Well, I know I don't have a whole lot of time. Like I said, I got to take my kids to the zoo in about 9 minutes. All right, make sure you drink your Brain Fuel. Check it out, brainfuel.com. Use promo code POKERCOACHING to get 15% off. Woo! Are these ranges for cash games? I have two different tabs open here. You can't see this because I tried to fit it all on the screen. These are the cash game charts. These are the tournament charts. Cash game charts, we have 100. Can I pull it down here? Yeah, so cash game charts, you see 100, 150, and 200 big blinds. Okay, for tournaments, we have all the shallower stacks. 10, 12, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and 80 big blind charts. Again, I know you can't see that. I was trying to make sure that you could see everything on the screen that was relevant. Okay. 80 big blinds deep, button against under the gun, as we see. Let's go down to 60. It's going to be pretty similar. But again, we see the bluff start to move towards the cusps, right? We see more ace-10 offsuit, king-x suiteds, ace-x suiteds. 40 big blinds deep, even more of this. More of the big offsuit hands are opting to bluff compared to the big suited hands. 40 big blinds deep on the button. Again, you're supposed to be calling a pretty good amount, right? 9-7 suited, king-6 suited, etc. Again, these hands require you play well post-flop, but you got to learn to play well post-flop. A lot of people justify their weak type play saying, oh, I don't play well post-flop. But if you don't play well post-flop, don't just admit to the fact that you play weak and tight and bad. You need to study, right? Our zoos open during COVID time. Zoos are open at 25% capacity. There's almost going to be no one in there. Americans don't care about COVID. Some do, some don't. Wear masks, sanitize your hands, go to places that have 25% capacity that are giant. Zoo's a giant outdoor space. You're going to be fine. All right. You say you're going to be fine. I'm not a virologist, and neither is anyone here most likely, so none of us actually know. All right. Let's see. 30 big blinds deep. Under the gun, a button against under the gun. As you see, this is where we start flat calling the aces sometimes, all right? We slow play a little bit. Even on the button, we see, again, hands on the cusp going to 3 bets, and we have a lot of calls here, right? So we see the small pairs calling now on the button. We see like 9-8 suited calling a lot, ace-x suited calling a lot. Something else a lot of you may do wrong is you may not call with a lot of the ace-x suiteds. These hands are definitely good enough to call. Some of you say, interesting to see the low king-x suiteds playing deep stacked up to call a lot. Pretty good hand. They make a lot of blockers post-flop, right? Blockers post-flop are quite valuable. And they make second nut flushes, which are also pretty good. Okay? All right, let's go down to 20 big blinds. This is where we're going to start seeing the all-in size again. Remember, 30 big blinds deep, we are not shoving over open raises. Unless, of course, they raise big to begin with. But if they raise to 2 big blinds pre-flop, we are not shoving for 30 big blinds over their initial raise, unless there's like some payout implication scenario. But this is a spot where we're now jamming our best hands, ace-king, ace-queen, queens, jacks, 10s, 9s, 8s, king-jack suited, king-10 suited, ace-10 suited, low ace-x suited. And then we're flatting a lot of hands too. Pocket aces and pocket kings. Notice here there is a tiny, small 3-bet range. I would just ignore this. Anytime the small 3-bet range or anytime any range is very tiny, you can kind of ignore it. Obviously, we're not trying to play perfect GTO here. If you try to play like a perfect GTO robot, you're going to screw up left and right. It's not my job to teach you a strategy. It's going to result in you screwing up left and right. We're trying to teach you to play well. There are a lot of courses out there that are just going to show you charts like this and say, do this. Hate to break it to you, mere humans are not so good at that. That's why we have the implementable GTO charts at pokercoaching.com as well in the tools section. I'll show you where those are. Click on the tools. These should be available to all Poker Coaching members, by the way. Go to downloadable preflop charts Click right here. Here we have implementable 6-handed GTO charts, 4-handed GTO charts, 75, 40, 25, and 15 big blind charts, okay? These are essentially going to, instead of telling you to, let's say, shove ace-queen suited, king-queen suited, and ace-5 suited 44% of the time, 42% of the time, etc., we're just combining them all into one cell, probably ace-queen suited here, and then flat the other ones, right? And then you'd also jam like ace-4 suited instead of ace-4 67% of the time, and ace-3 30% of the time. You want to make sure whatever strategy you're using is very implementable, and a lot of people mess up because they do not do that. What they do is they see like ace-3 suited, all in 30%, call 70%, and they just always call it. And that's an error. All right, 15 big blinds deep, there's going to be a little bit more shoving, as you see. Less flat calling as you get really shallow, more shoving. 12 big blinds deep, more shoving, less calling. 10 big blinds deep, more shoving, almost no calling now. That said, pocket aces still flat calls on the button, okay? Other flat calls include ace-9 suited, king-jack suited, queen-jack suited, mostly. Okay? Now, we've went through all of the against and under the gun raise. This is against a tight range, okay? Now, since we have a whopping 9 minutes left, let's go through button against cutoff. This is going to be the loosest you're going to be playing for the most part. Let's take a look at the cash game charts first. Button against cutoff raise. So here, 200 big blinds deep in a cash game with rake, no ante. Cutoff raises, we're on the button. 3-betting a lot, right? With a very, I don't even know what you want to call this range. A very, very mixed strategy. Aces, kings, queens, jacks, ace, king, ace, queen suited are the only hands that are 3-betting basically every time. Literally every other hand you play 3-bet some portion of the time. What a mess, huh? That's why we have the implementable GTO charts. Okay? Implementable GTO charts, I would just make this more polarized. I would flat call. I mean, like right here, you can still see the hands on the cusp are 3-betting more often, right? Like ace-10 offsuit, 3-bets more than ace-jack offsuit because ace-10 is worse, right? So we are still 3-betting pretty polarized, even though it may not be so clear, right? So anyway, we are 3-betting a lot of the ace-x suited, a lot of the ace-x offsuit, well, ace-10 offsuit mainly, some king-x suited, etc. If you like this show, hit the like button. Yeah, hit the like button. I would appreciate it. Hit like, hit subscribe. There's also a notification bell. I know that almost none of you hit the notification bell. Do me a favor, hit the notification bell. What positions are these? Button against cutoff. This is button against cutoff. 200 big blinds deep in a cash game. Okay? 150 big blinds deep is going to be similar. 100 big blinds deep is going to be similar enough, but now you do start to see a change, right? Notice 200 big blinds deep were really, really mixed. Really mixed all over the place. Like a lot of these hands call 50%, 3-bet 50%, right? But 100 big blinds deep, you start to see now that we are 3-betting the best hands again. Ace-queen suited and better, ace-king offsuit, ace-king suited, pocket queens and better. But now the bluffs start to become a little bit more, I guess, logical as most people would think, right? More just pure combinations of ace-x suited, some king-x suited, hands very much on the cusp, but very clearly polarized strategy, right? So as we get shallower and shallower, we get to use more and more obviously polarized strategies. Let's take a look now. 80 big blinds deep. On the button against a raise from the cutoff. As you see, these charts are very easily navigatable. We have an app, by the way. If you're a Poker Coaching Premium member, you can access these on your phone. Pull them up while you're playing, as long as that's not against the rules of the site or the casino. All right, 80 big blinds deep in this scenario. Maybe I should move this down just a little bit. Is this better? This may be better. You can't see the bottom cell. That's okay. Bottom cell doesn't really matter. 80 big blinds deep. Button against cutoff raise. As we see, lots of ace-x suited 3-betting. Ace-8 offsuit, ace-9 offsuit, ace-10 offsuit, ace-jack offsuit uses bluffs. Some of these king-10, queen-10, jack-10 uses bluffs. Then just a lot of calls. With an ante in play, with no rake, you get to call a lot. Like 6-5 suited, 5-4 suited, 8-6 suited, 10-8 suited. All these suited connected type hands. King-x suited, right? All these hands are pretty playable in this scenario. As we get shallower to go to 60 big blinds, similar chart, right? Not a lot changes here. Yeah, not a lot changes. Very, very similar chart, 80 to 60. As we drop down to 40, this is where it's going to start changing a decent amount. As we see just even more polarized, right? You get more and more polarized typically as you get shallower and shallower. As you're deeper and deeper, you're typically a little bit more mixed. 30 big blinds deep. You see now we start using an all-in range. This is different than the previous spots. Remember, Against under the gun, we're only jamming like 20-ish big blinds whenever they open. But against the cutoff, we start jamming with a larger stack. And that's because the range is wider and it's going to have a more difficult time defending. So we see the hands that typically want the shark stuffing first are ace-king offsuit, ace-queen offsuit, king-jack suited, king-10 suited, queen-10 suited, jack-10 suited, and the middle pairs, like 9s and 8s, right? These are hands that love to shove. So ask yourself, in tournaments, what are you doing in this spot where cutoff raises, you're on the button with pocket 8s? Are you calling or are you jamming? Or are you 3-betting small? Turns out, right play is to be jamming most of the time in this scenario. Same thing with ace-queen offsuit and ace-king offsuit. You should mostly jam in this scenario. That said, you should still have a small 3-betting range with a lot of the other best hands tends to aces, ace-king suited, ace-queen suited, and a smattering of bluffs. Don't forget the smattering of bluffs. If anything, against most people, I would recommend you overbluff because most people raise too often and then play poorly post-flop or they fold too often pre-flop, right? If you know you're gonna get called a lot, by the way, maybe you want to 3-bet a little bit more linearly, like maybe not king 7 suited, maybe more just like king queen suited, right? So make sure we're aware of that. All right, 20 big blinds deep. We're gonna do more shoving. Actually, no small 3-betting now at this point. So if the button raises or cutoff raises where in the button. We are calling aces and kings most of the time. Also calling a lot of hands that flop very well, right? Suited connected hands, good king X, good queen X, good jack X, good 10X, suited. A few big cards and aces and kings. So notice aces and kings slow plays a ton. Remember, 20 big blinds deep on the button. Somebody raises and you have aces, flat call. Make sure you include some of the hands that flop well too though. Don't just shove or fold everything besides aces because then you're really straightforward. 15 big blinds deep even you're going to see slow playing aces. Right? 12 big blinds deep, we probably start shoving, but even then, 12 big blinds deep, we slow play aces. Still a decent amount of calling. Think about this. In a tournament, cutoff raises, and we're on the button, 12 big blinds deep. GTO is to flat call 9s and 8s and 7s a decent amount of the time. Pretty interesting, right? Pocket aces, obviously, slow plays as well. Anytime you have some slow plays when you're playing shallow stack, you're going to find that aces always slow plays. Do we slow play 10 big blinds deep? Even aces slow plays a little bit 10 big blinds deep. That's pretty cool, huh? Cool stuff from the GTO point of view. All right. Well, that's all I had for you today. I have to go take my kids to the zoo now. Hope you enjoyed this. This was just a quick overview of the charts that we have at pokercoaching.com. Make sure you check those out. Some of them are available for standard members. All of them are available for premium members. Again, you can use them on your app on your phone. Pull them up nice and quick. You see how quickly I was going through these. You can easily navigate to them just as quick. Also, obviously, I ran out of time today, but we could have gone through spots where we're in the big blind, right? Big blind versus, let's say, a cutoff raise. 20 big blinds deep. As you see, we have charts for all of this. Lots of defending in that scenario. But there you go. So that's going to be it for today. I hope you all enjoy your life. Make the most of your life. Make the most of your experience. Check out pokercoaching.com/free. You get access to a lot of this. Enjoy your day. Thank you very much for being here. Again, if you like this, do me a quick favor. Click the like and subscribe button below. I have to go run and hop in the car before my wife and her parents kill me for being late. Thank you for being here. I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.